Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, Oblivion Remastered kinda dropped out of nowhere, right? One day you're minding your own business, and the next, you're diving headfirst into a gorgeously revamped version of a 2006 classic. Thanks to Unreal Engine 5, the world of Cyrodiil has never looked this good. The lighting, the textures, the little environmental details. It all feels like someone finally gave Oblivion the love it always deserved. And best of all, the core gameplay is still that same nostalgic blend of charm and jank we fell in love with all those years ago. But let's be real for a second. Along with the good stuff, the remaster also brings back some of the not-so-great bits. Yeah, I'm talking about the skill system. They've made a few tweaks to how leveling works, sure, but a weak skill back in the day? Still weak now. Some skills just don't scale well, or worse, barely serve any purpose once you get past the early game. So today, we're taking a closer look at the most useless skills in Oblivion Remastered. The ones that sound cool at first but end up wasting your time. Let's break them down so you can spend more time slaying Daedra and less time grinding pointless stats. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching! Alright, let's talk about athletics in Oblivion Remastered, and why it might just be one of the most useless skills you can invest in. Sure, on paper it sounds pretty good, right? Run faster, swim better, maybe even feel like a nimble little elf darting through the wilderness. But in reality, it kind of falls flat. The problem is, while being able to outrun enemies sounds handy, it does not really work like that in the remastered version. Enemies are more persistent. They will keep chasing you no matter how fast you try to run. So unless you are planning on doing a marathon through the forests of Cyrodiil, athletics is not going to save you. Now, in the original game, you could sometimes use athletics to get out of tight situations, sprint away, maybe lose a few monsters in the process. But in the remaster, enemies just do not give up. They will keep following you until you deal with them. So that whole just run for it tactic? Pretty much out the window. That alone knocks athletics down a few pegs. There is not much point in being fast if your enemies are just as fast and twice as stubborn. To make matters worse, leveling up athletics is almost too easy. You just swim in circles or run around and boom, level up. That might sound like a good thing, but in Oblivion, leveling up is a double-edged sword. If you are raising your character level through athletics, but not keeping your combat skills up, you will find yourself in a world of hurt. Enemies scale with your level, and if your sword or destruction magic is still at beginner levels, you are going to get stomped by a bandit with steel armor and a grudge. In the grand scheme of things, there are just better skills to pick as major ones. Skills that actually help you survive and win fights, not just run from them. Athletics might have a nostalgic charm or feel like a cool roleplay option, but mechanically, it is more trouble than it is worth. Leave it as a minor skill, let it level naturally, and save your major slots for something that can actually keep you alive out there. Conjuration in Oblivion Remastered. Sounds awesome on paper, right? The idea of summoning creatures from other realms to fight for you while you chill in the back casting spells or shooting arrows. It should be peak wizard power fantasy. But here's the thing, none of that really works out the way you want it to. The artificial intelligence and pathing in Oblivion Remastered are just as clunky as they were in the original game. Your summoned creature might take a few seconds to realize it is in a fight, and in those few seconds, it often gets completely wrecked. Not ideal when you are relying on them to tank or deal damage. Now sure, minions can help out a little bit in combat. They can take some of the heat off you, distract enemies, maybe even land a few solid hits. But if you are trying to build your entire character around Conjuration, you are going to have a rough time. The creatures you summon do not scale particularly well. They have pretty poor decision-making, and the moment you need them to come through for you the most, they often let you down. Honestly, they feel more like backup dancers than main performers. And get this, if you have Frostcrag Spire, you can just trade in a few alchemy ingredients and get permanent Atronach minions, like, for basically free. That kind of devalues the whole point of leveling up Conjuration. Why bother investing time and magicka into summoning creatures when you can just collect a few mushrooms and get a full-time Daedra buddy? It is convenient, yes, but it also makes the skill itself feel kind of pointless. Now to be fair, Conjuration does have one sneaky use, gaming the leveling system. Summon a skeleton, whack it with a weak spell, rinse and repeat to level destruction. Or cast Bound Dagger repeatedly for free blade experience. But if the best part of a skill is using it to boost other skills, that is not a great sign. As much as I want to love Conjuration, summoning Daedra is just cool, it is hard to ignore that it is probably one of the most useless skills in Oblivion Remastered. Alright, let's talk about one of the most overrated skills in The Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion Remastered, Merkantile. On paper it sounds great, right? Getting better prices from merchants, selling your loot for more gold, and keeping your gear in top shape without going broke. In the early game, Merkantile actually feels kind of useful. You are scraping together every septim just to buy that slightly better sword, or to repair your armor after getting smacked around by bandits. So having a skill that stretches your gold a little further? Yeah, that sounds helpful. But here is the thing. Once you get deeper into the game, Merkantile just kind of falls apart. You end up with more gold than you know what to do with. Seriously, by mid-game, you are swimming in septims. You could buy a house in every city and still have enough left over to open your own shop. So all that time you spent trying to level up Merkantile, it starts to feel like a big waste, especially when you realize that most of the stuff you want to buy, like spells, gear, or training, barely dents your wallet anymore. Now let's not forget how bartering actually works in the game. It is not just your Merkantile skill that matters, it is also about the merchant's disposition toward you. So what is stopping you from just charming the pants off every shopkeeper in Cyrodiil? Literally nothing. A quick use of an illusion spell like Charm or a bit of Persuasion, and suddenly, everyone loves you. Your prices go down, their mood goes up, and Merkantile starts looking even more like the awkward third wheel of the economic system. In the end, Merkantile is a skill you outgrow. It teases you with usefulness at the beginning, but it just cannot keep up with the economy of a high-level hero. When you are clearing out entire dungeons and selling off Daedra gear like it is secondhand junk, do you really care if you are getting 5% more gold per item? Probably not. So unless you are role-playing a shopkeeper stuck in a dungeon-crawling nightmare, maybe skip leveling Merkantile and just let the riches roll in the easy way. Alright, let's talk about Mysticism in Oblivion Remastered, and why it might just be the most disappointing magic school in the whole game. Now, I know some of you might have a soft spot for it. Maybe you like the sound of Mysticism, or maybe you're really into Soul Trap. But let's be honest here, it just does not pull its weight. Early on, what are you even getting? Detect Life, Dispel, and Soul Trap. That is it. And out of those, Soul Trap is the only one that actually matters, and even then, it is more of a utility than something you actively want to use in combat. Let's break that down. Detect Life sounds cool, but it is only useful in very specific situations, like sneaking through a dungeon or hunting invisible enemies. Most of the time, you are just watching a bunch of purple glows through walls. Dispel? May be handy in some cases, but potions and scrolls can do the job just as well, if not better. So that leaves us with Soul Trap. And yes, if you are into enchanting or keeping your weapons charged, you will definitely want Soul Trap around. But here is the catch. You do not need to invest heavily in Mysticism to use it. You can just grab a scroll or enchant a weapon to do the same thing. Now to be fair, Mysticism does have some better spells later in the game. Spell Absorption and Spell Reflect come to mind. These are actually good. The problem? You need to be an expert in the skill to use them at a decent level. And by the time you get there, chances are you have already found a ring, a necklace, or a robe that does the exact same thing, passively. No magic cost, no casting, just free defense. So even the good spells in Mysticism feel kind of pointless when the game is literally handing you permanent enchanted alternatives. Honestly, if you are playing a mage, almost any other school of magic gives you more value. Destruction lets you deal damage, Conjuration gives you allies, Illusion is basically cheat codes with invisibility and frenzy, and Restoration keeps you alive. Mysticism? It gives you Soul Trap, and a whole lot of disappointment. Unless you are role-playing a soul-obsessed ghost hunter, you might want to spend your time in Magicka elsewhere. You know, there is just something cool about the idea of being a martial arts monk in a fantasy world. No swords, no axes, just your fists and sheer willpower. And in Oblivion Remastered, the hand-to-hand skill kind of teases you with that fantasy. At first, it feels like a fun and unique way to play. You throw punches, knock enemies off their feet, and it really feels like something different from the usual hack and slash. Especially if you manage to grab the bands of Kuang Lao early in the arena district. Those give a solid boost to your unarmed damage in the early game. But then reality starts to hit. As you level up and enemies start wearing better armor and hitting harder, your hand-to-hand damage just does not keep up. Weapons start scaling with enchantments and higher base damage, while you are still throwing haymakers that feel more like polite nudges. And those bands of Kwang Lao? They are great at first, but their usefulness starts to fade hard once you get out of the low-level range. At that point, relying on your fists becomes more of a stubborn roleplay choice than an effective combat option. Now, to be fair, the skill does have some fun tricks later on. When you reach higher hand-to-hand levels, you can pull off power attacks that disarm or even paralyze your enemies. That sounds amazing on paper. The problem? Oblivion's directional power attacks are a nightmare to pull off consistently. You have to move in a specific direction while timing your attack just right, which can get clunky and frustrating mid-fight. And if you mess it up, you are left open to getting wrecked by an angry bandit with a warhammer. Not ideal. So yeah, while hand-to-hand might seem like a fun and quirky skill to level up, it ends up being one of the most useless in the game when it comes to actual combat effectiveness. If you are just in it for the roleplay, go for it. No judgment here. But if you are trying to survive in the world of Oblivion Remastered, you might want to leave the monk fantasy behind and pick up a real weapon. Let's talk about acrobatics in Oblivion Remastered. You know, at first glance, it sounds kinda cool. Jumping higher, dodging attacks, maybe pulling off some epic moves while exploring Tamriel. But let's be honest here, it is one of those skills that looks great on paper, but in practice, well, not so much. If it were not for the fact that it reduces fall damage and gives you a dodge roll at apprentice level, this skill would be collecting dust at the bottom of the utility drawer. Now, yes, technically you can jump a little higher as your acrobatics level increases. That sounds helpful, right? But most of the time, it does absolutely nothing for you. The game world in Oblivion just is not built with verticality in mind. You are not scaling towers or hopping across rooftops like some fantasy assassin. Everything is flat. Dungeons, forts, caves, almost everything is designed horizontally. So having that extra jump height does not actually open up new gameplay opportunities. It just makes your character hop like an over-caffeinated rabbit. There are some niche moments where it might help. If you are a sneaky archer, you might find one of those rare spots where you can jump onto a ledge that enemies cannot reach. It is a fun little exploit, sure, but let's not pretend that is a consistent or game-changing advantage. Most of the time, enemies will just stand below you and wait while you awkwardly shoot arrows down, wondering why you put so many points into this skill in the first place. Honestly, the only real reason to choose acrobatics as a major skill is if you want to level up by standing in place and spamming jumps. It is a classic Oblivion move. Find a corner, jump like a maniac for 20 minutes, and watch that skill bar fill up. It is more comedy than combat. So unless you are really committed to role-playing a hyperactive jumper, or just love doing flips for fun, acrobatics might be better left off your major skill list. Alright, let's talk about one of the most pointless skills in Oblivion Remastered. Security. Yeah, I know, lockpicking sounds like it should be cool. Sneak into a dungeon, open a chest, find some treasure, that kind of thing. But in practice, security just does not hold up. It affects the lockpicking minigame, and while that might sound important, the truth is, it barely makes a difference unless you hit certain skill milestones. In between those, it is like leveling for no reward. The skill feels sluggish and unrewarding to invest in. Now here is where it gets really silly. There is an item in the game called the Skeleton Key, and it is a game changer. This little artifact is basically an unbreakable lockpick that also gives you a plus 40 boost to your security skill. So even if you are terrible at the minigame, just keep trying and the lock will eventually open. It is a reward from the Daedric quest at Nocturnal Shrine, and it is not even that hard to get. Once you have it, you can forget about ever leveling security again. It makes the entire skill irrelevant. But wait, there is more. If you are not into Daedric artifacts or just want to skip the whole lockpicking thing entirely, the Alteration Magic School has got you covered. There are spells that open locks with a simple touch. No minigame, no broken picks, no headaches, just a quick cast and boom, door is open. Plus, Alteration gives you a bunch of other cool utilities like feather spells and shield spells, so it is way more valuable overall. Why struggle with pins and tumblers when you can just magic the lock away? So, when you are picking your major skills in Oblivion Remastered, do yourself a favor and skip security. Seriously, there are other underwhelming skills in the game, sure, but at least most of them offer something unique or fun. Security? It is basically a skill you only use until you find one specific item or learn a couple of basic spells. After that, it is just dead weight in your character build. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.